There is a saying in the addictions field, once an addict, always an addict. But is that really true? Is it possible for somebody who suffers from alcoholism to ever be able to safely drink alcohol again? In this video, we're going to explore this controversial issue, and the answer may surprise you. Now is always the time to start making positive changes in your life. Dr. Donna Bliss here. On this channel, I promote optimal mental health and well-being to help you become the best version of yourself. If there are any topics you would like me to make a video on, please let me know in the comments below. So today we're going to talk about alcoholism, the nature of it, the controversial issues around powerlessness and unmanageability and control, and explore the question, can somebody who is an alcoholic ever be able to safely return to drinking again, especially after a period of sobriety? So there's a general consensus that alcoholism is pretty destructive. It negatively impacts the health and well-being of individuals, families, communities, work environments, and society as a whole. And because it's such a serious issue, it's controversial. What is an alcoholic? How do you define it? People often think it has something to do with how much you drink or how often you drink, but that really isn't the case. So because it's kind of a gray area, it leads to confusion and controversy. A functional definition of alcoholism is that if your drinking is causing you problems in important areas of your life and you still continue to drink, then you have a problem with alcoholism. Now, I will admit that is not really a very scientific definition of alcoholism. I've worked in the field for many, many years, and it's pretty clear when somebody's crossed the line into alcoholism. You can see it, but it's very difficult to say at what point they crossed. So there's always going to be some controversy about what alcoholism is, and disagreement with people about whether they're an alcoholic or not. There is also quite a bit of controversy about the notions of powerlessness and the need to be abstinent. Alcoholics Anonymous, the original 12-step support group, does hold that an alcoholic is somebody who has lost their ability to control their drinking, and as a result, that causes problems in important areas of their life. And so they hold that once you become alcoholic, you can never control your drinking, and therefore recovery has to require 100% abstinence. Now, not all support groups or treatment programs for alcoholism feel the same way. In contrast, Moderation Management, which was founded in 1994 for non-dependent problem drinkers, focuses on helping problem drinkers moderate their drinking using a cognitive behavioral change process. Hence, the idea of powerlessness and need for 100% abstinence is not really promoted. Moderation management does empower individuals to accept personal responsibility for choosing and maintaining their own path, whether that is moderation or abstinence. So as you can see, there's really two camps regarding the notion of powerlessness and abstinence. There's really not a lot of gray area. Although moderation management does really emphasize that moderation is much more of a possibility for somebody who's not dependent, which means not alcoholic. It's not really as clear about if somebody is dependent on alcohol, do they really have the ability to moderate their drinking? So their tendency is to really allow somebody else to define that for themselves. So one of the questions that comes up when we discuss ideas of powerlessness and lack of control and abstinence is, can an alcoholic, especially after a period of sobriety, ever regain the ability to control their drinking? And this is actually a rather contentious issue. Now, Alcoholics Anonymous would hold that that's really not possible, that once you become an alcoholic, you can't go back and undo that. So its explicit position about the idea of gaining control over alcohol can be found on page 30 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which states, quote, Quote, "We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better." Now, one of the things that's interesting when you look at that quote is that it talks about an alcoholic of a certain type. And in the literature of AA, it talks about a real alcoholic. And back when AA started in 1935, most of the people that were drawn to AA were what we would call low-bottom drunks. And that's really changed quite a bit. So there's still even question of what is a real alcoholic or potential alcoholic. But when we look at AA, it's pretty clear that AA by nature defines alcoholism as an illness that once you have it, you really lose your ability to control drinking. Therefore, you can't safely drink any alcohol at all. Hence, it promotes 100% abstinence. And its spiritually based program of recovery is really about helping people make lifestyle choices so that they can stay abstinent or sober from alcoholism. They really don't talk about whether if you've been sober for a period of time, can you return to drinking. But when you read the literature, it's pretty clear that AA's point of view is that there's never really the ability of somebody to be able to go back and control their drinking. Now, I will tell you, I've worked in the field for decades, and I have worked with some people who claim that they've been able to safely drink alcohol again. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, because I don't know how much they drink and what safely drink means and how long they drink. Sometimes when people have had a period of sobriety, they are able to drink with some moderation, but usually what happens is that they start drinking more, their ability to control their drinking becomes impaired, and their life just starts to become unmanageable again. So it may take some time, and just because somebody is able to drink successfully for a short period of time doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be successful in the long term. The evidence that we have about somebody returning and being able to safely drink is anecdotal at best. I don't know of any research that really looks at this question. But really the bigger point is it worth the risk? If the vast majority of people who are alcoholic and start drinking again experience even more unmanageability in their life, more problems, more DUIs, they get fired, relationships end, some of them end up in institutions, some die. Is it really worth the risk on the off chance that you as an individual may be one of the very, very few people that can safely drink alcohol again, especially if you've been sober for a while? So while I think it is theoretically possible for somebody who's an alcoholic to safely drink again, I do think that given how risky this is, it would be just an incredibly dangerous thing to do. So to me, really the answer based on my practical experience to the question about whether somebody can safely drink alcohol again, especially after a period of sobriety, is the answer is no. And it's just not worth the risk. So I encourage people, and if you're thinking about, well, gosh, I've been sober for 5 years, certainly I can have a drink or two. And again, you may be able to have a drink or two, but inevitably you might start having more. And then you're back into experiencing craving and drinking more and more than you planned and having negative consequences happen. So that's why, from my point of view, the answer to the question is once somebody's become an alcoholic, they can never successfully or safely drink again. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope it gets you really thinking about this notion about whether somebody can ever return to safely not just using alcohol, but any kind of drug or mood-changing chemical once they've crossed onto the path of being dependent on it. Please click on the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I release future videos. I've also included links for some other videos I think you might find helpful. Finally, remember, now is always the time to start making positive changes in your life. I'll see you next time.